You check your savings account. The number went up this month. You smile. You tell yourself you are being responsible. You tell yourself this is how wealth is built. But here's the truth no one in your life ever said out loud. Saving money alone will never make you rich, not even close. Think about the last time someone gave you financial advice. It was probably your parents, or a school teacher, or a well-meaning relative at a family dinner. And they all said the same thing. Save more, spend less, put it in the bank. Good advice, safe advice, and almost completely useless if your goal is actual wealth. There is a reason the people who taught you to save money are not rich. And it is not because they were lazy. It is not because they made bad choices. It is because the system they taught you to play was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make someone else wealthy. And every rupee or dollar you deposit into a savings account is quietly, invisibly making that someone richer than you. That feeling you have, that sense that you are doing everything right but still falling behind, is not a coincidence. It is a feature. Let us start with the most basic betrayal, the interest rate on your savings account. Right now, most savings accounts offer somewhere between 2 and 4% annual interest. That sounds like something, until you understand inflation. Inflation is the rate at which the purchasing power of your money decreases over time. In most economies, inflation runs between 4 and 7% annually, and in many developing economies, far higher than that. What this means is brutally simple. If your savings account pays you 3% and inflation is running at 5%, you are not saving money. You are losing 2% of your real wealth every single year, silently, automatically, without a single notification. Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Samuelson called this the money illusion. The number in your account goes up, so your brain registers a win. But your purchasing power, the actual number of things you can buy, is going down. You see the digits, you do not see the decay. This is not an accident. Central banks and governments around the world deliberately keep savings account returns below the inflation rate. Why? Because if your money could simply sit in a bank and beat inflation effortlessly, there would be very little incentive to invest, to start businesses, to take economic risks. The low savings rate is engineered to push capital into the economy. Your discomfort is monetary policy. Now here's where the story gets darker. While your savings lose value against inflation, the bank is using your deposited money to lend out to other people at 10, 12, 15, sometimes 20% interest on credit cards and personal loans. You deposit money, the bank lends it. The bank keeps the difference. This is called the net interest margin, and it is how banks generate billions in profit every single year. Your caution is their inventory.
Thomas Piketty, in his landmark work Capital in the 21st Century, demonstrated with 2 centuries of economic data what this really means at a civilizational scale. He showed that the return on capital, investments, businesses, assets, consistently outpaces the growth of wages and savings over time. In plain language, the people who own things get richer faster than the people who work for money or save money. Every decade, every generation, almost without exception. The saver is always on the wrong side of this equation. So why does everyone keep telling you to save? Part of it is genuine care. Your parents wanted you to be stable, not broke. Part of it is cultural. In most societies, saving feels virtuous, spending feels sinful, investing feels risky. We moralize around money in ways that quietly work against us. But part of the reason saving is still the dominant advice is simply that it benefits the institutions giving the advice. Banks need deposits. Financial stability is easier to sell than financial growth. And people are far more afraid of losing money than they are motivated by the possibility of gaining it. Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying this in his research on behavioral economics and loss aversion. His work, later compiled in Thinking, Fast and Slow, showed that psychologically, the pain of losing a sum of money is approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining that same amount. This is not a personal weakness, it is hardwired human psychology, and it is exactly why the advice to play it safe resonates so deeply, even when the math does not support it. Your brain is wired to avoid loss. The system is designed to exploit that instinct. And the result is a middle class that saves diligently, watches inflation eat their savings slowly, and never quite understands why wealth feels permanently out of reach. Now let us talk about the math of compounding, because this is where the real gap between savers and wealth builders becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine 2 people. Person A saves $500 every month and puts it in a savings account earning 3% annually. Person B invests $500 every month in a diversified index fund with an average annual return of 10%, the historical average of the S&P 500 over the past century, as documented extensively by economist Jeremy Siegel in Stocks for the Long Run. After 30 years, Person A has saved $180,000 in contributions. With compound interest at 3%, their account has grown to approximately $290,000. That sounds decent. Person B has made the same contributions, $180,000 total. But at 10% compounding annually, their investment portfolio has grown to over $1 million. $1 million versus $290,000. Same money, same time, completely different outcome. The only variable is where the money went. This is the wealth gap that no one teaches you. Not a gap in income, not a gap in effort, a gap in where your money is working. Warren Buffett has said in various interviews over the decades that he knew from a very young age that his money needed to compound. He understood that time was an asset, that every dollar he did not put to work was a dollar paying a silent tax to the future. Buffett made his first investment at 11 years old. By the time most people are thinking seriously about money, he had already spent a decade letting compounding build a foundation of what would become the greatest personal fortune in investing history.
The system he used is not secret. It is not complex. It is available to almost anyone with a brokerage account and a long enough horizon. The reason most people do not use it is not ignorance. It is the psychology Kahneman mapped. Loss aversion, present bias, the fear of seeing a portfolio value drop even temporarily on the way to long-term growth. Saving feels safe because it is predictable. Investing feels dangerous because it fluctuates. But what feels safe is actually the riskier long-term choice. Here is the counterintuitive truth at the core of everything you just heard. Risk is not a thing to be avoided, it is a thing to be managed. The person who keeps all their money in a savings account is not avoiding risk. They are accepting a different risk, the quiet, steady, invisible risk of inflation erosion. They have simply chosen a risk they cannot see over one they can. The wealthy do not avoid risk. They choose which risks to take. They invest in assets, equities, real estate, businesses that have historically returned far more than inflation. They accept short-term volatility in exchange for long-term growth, and over decades, that trade-off compounds into wealth that savings accounts can never approach. So, what should you actually do? Start by separating your money into two different roles. One portion is an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, sitting in a high-yield savings account or liquid instrument. This money is not for growth, it is for stability. It is your financial shock absorber. Keep it there. Do not invest it. Everything beyond that emergency cushion needs to be deployed. It needs to work. A portion in low-cost index funds that track the broad market. A portion in tax-advantaged retirement instruments, if they exist in your country. Over time, as your knowledge grows, you might add real estate, bonds, or other asset classes that match your risk tolerance and time horizon. The specific vehicles matter less than the fundamental shift in mindset. Stop treating money as something to protect. Start treating it as something to put to work. Your bank is not your partner. It is a business. It profits from your caution. Every month you leave surplus money earning 2% while inflation runs at 5% is a month you're subsidizing someone else's wealth building. The most dangerous financial advice in the world is not bad advice. It is good advice taken too far. Save for emergencies? Yes. Save for stability? Absolutely. But saving as a path to wealth is not a plan. It is a very comfortable, very respectable, very slow way to stay exactly where you are. You checked your savings account this morning. The number went up. But now you know, a number going up is not the same thing as wealth being built. Real wealth is not kept in a savings account. It is grown somewhere else entirely. And the sooner your money moves there, the sooner it starts working for you instead of for the bank.